Hello everyone, welcome once again in the video lecture of Communication Engineering. In today's video lecture, we are going to discuss about the pulse modulation system. So let us start. What is pulse modulation system? We know what is modulation. Modulation is the process of varying any one of the parameter of a high frequency carrier signal according to the instantaneous value of the modulating signal, that is the information that we want to modulate or the information that we want to transmit after modulation. This modulation we can perform with the help of high frequency carrier signal. That carrier signal can be in the form of continuous analog signal. That carrier signal can also be in the form of pulse train. So in analog modulation system, we used to vary some of the parameters of a high frequency sinusoidal waveform according to the instantaneous value of the modulating signal. While in case of pulse modulation, what is pulse modulation? In case of pulse modulation, the carrier is no longer a continuous signal, but it consists of a pulse train, and we used to vary some of the parameters like amplitude, width or position of that pulse train according to the instantaneous value of the modulating signal. So what is pulse modulation, or what is the basic difference between pulse modulation system and continuous analog modulation system? The modulating signal will remain same in both the techniques, in continuous analog modulation system and in pulse modulation system. In case of continuous analog modulation, we used to select a carrier that is a high frequency periodic waveform. The nature of the carrier is continuous in nature. While in case of pulse modulation, we used to select carrier in the form of pulses of constant width, position and amplitude. So this kind of representation of pulses is also called as pulse train. So in case of pulse modulation, the modulation will be performed with the help of this carrier, which is in the form of train of pulses. So to understand pulse modulation, first we have to understand the sampling process. What do we understand by the term sampling? We can define sampling as a process in which an analog signal is converted into a corresponding sequence of samples at a specified interval. The samples will be usually taken at the samples are usually spaced uniformly in time. In general language, we can define sampling as a process of converting a continuous analog signal into a discrete time signal. Sampling is the very first step of converting analog signal into digital signal. We can convert analog signal into digital signal with the help of sampling, quantization and encoding. So sampling is the very first step for converting analog signal into digital signal. What we will get after performing the sampling of the analog signal makes them discrete in time, but the signal will still remain continuous in amplitude. What we will do in case of sampling, if we have a continuous time analog signal, then first we will select a train of pulses at regular time interval. Will multiply both of them, and at the output what we will get? We will get the sampled signal. What is this sampled signal? Now in continuous analog signal, previously in continuous analog signal, the signal is available at each and every time interval. Even between 0 and 1 second there will be infinite time intervals, and the signal is available for the entire duration. When we perform the sampling, then at the output what we will get? The sampled signal. What is the meaning of sampled signal? Now the signal is available at the discrete time instant, let's say T1, T2, T3, T4. Between T1 and T2 there is no signal. So what we do in sampling, we convert an analog signal into a discrete time signal. The signal will be discrete in time axis but still continuous in amplitude axis. Okay. Why we require to perform the sampling? To convert analog signal into digital signal. This is the very first step. Now, how we can perform the sampling? We have understood that what is sampling, how we can perform this sampling. The sampling can be performed with the help of sampling theorem. What is sampling theorem? Sampling theorem determines the minimum number of samples required to reconstruct perfectly the continuous signal again from its sample. That means first we have to consider a train of pulses at regular or at uniform time interval, then we will get the sampled signal, and to again recover the original information back from the sampled signal, we have to follow the sample theorem. It will indicate how many samples are required to represent this continuous analog signal as a discrete time signals. Okay. So, what is sampling theorem? We can, this is the statement of sampling theorem. According to the sampling theorem, a continuous time band limited signal of finite energy which has no frequency component greater than FM hertz can be represented in its sample and can be recovered back when the sampling frequency Fs is greater than or equal to the twice of the highest component present in the message signal. That is, Fs must be greater than equals to twice of Fm, where Fs is sampling frequency and Fm is the maximum frequency component present in the maximum in the message signal. So, when this condition is fulfilled, then we will be able to recover our original information back from the sampled signal. To reconstruct the signal back from its sample, this criteria or this condition must be satisfied. The sampling rate, that is twice of Fm, the sampling rate of twice of Fm samples per second for a signal bandwidth of Fm hertz is called Nyquist rate. This Fs, that is sampling rate, it is called as Nyquist rate, and its reciprocal, that is 1 upon twice of Fm, is called as sampling interval or the Nyquist interval. Okay, what we used to call this Fs as sampling frequency, as sampling rate or the Nyquist rate, and the reciprocal of Fs, the reciprocal of Fs is called as sampling interval or the Nyquist interval. So, Fs is equals to twice of Fm is known as Nyquist rate, and Ts is equals to 1 upon twice of Fm is known as Nyquist interval. With the help of this, we can estimate how many number of samples are required to represent continuous analog information into its discrete time signal representation. Now, what if that criteria will not be satisfied? If the sampling rate is lesser than twice of Fm, then what will happen? What will happen when the sampling rate is less than twice of Fm? When the sampling rate is less than twice of Fm, then there will be an irreversible overlap of the spectral replica is produced in the sampled signal. What is the meaning of this? In the when Fs is lesser than twice of Fm, then the spectrum of the adjacent signal will overlap the lower frequency signals, or we can say the higher frequency signal will try to overlap with the lower frequency component. That is an irreversible overlapping. That means we cannot remove that overlapping. This condition of overlapping of the spectra is called as aliasing effect. This is called aliasing effect. If this will happen, if we consider Fs less than twice of Fm, and if the overlapping will occur, then the signal cannot be reconstructed back from its sampled signal. Okay. So, what this condition is called? This condition is called aliasing effect. What is aliasing effect? We can understand aliasing as a phenomena that happens when a signal is sampled at less than the twice of the highest frequency contained in the signal. So aliasing refers to the phenomena of a high frequency component in the spectrum of the signal taking on the identity of a lower frequency in the spectrum of its sampled version. Okay, so if an information carrying signal is not strictly band limited, then also aliasing can be produced by the sampling process. This aliasing can occur if Fs is lesser than twice of Fm, and aliasing can also occur if the information carrying signal is not strictly band limited. So to recover the original signal back from the sampled signal, this condition must be satisfied, that is Fs must be greater than equals to twice of Fm. Let us observe the spectra of the sampled signal. Here we have the three conditions of sampling, that is oversampling, perfect sampling and undersampling. When Fs is exactly equals to the twice of Fm, that means when the sampling rate is exactly equal to the twice of maximum frequency component present in the master signal, this is called as perfect sampling or the ideal sampling. In the spectrum of the signal, we can observe that there is no gap between the adjacent samples. Okay, why when Fs is greater than twice of Fm, this condition is called as oversampling, and there we can observe enough gap between the adjacent spectra of the sampled signals. But when the sampling frequency and the sampling rate is lesser than twice of Fm, this condition is called as undersampling. In this case, the adjacent spectra of the sampled signal are overlapping with its adjacent signal. This overlapping is called as aliasing effect, and if aliasing will occur, then we cannot reconstruct our original message back from the sampled signal. Okay, so what we can do, what corrective measures we can perform to avoid aliasing? Once the aliasing will occur, we cannot remove the aliasing, but we can take some precautions so that aliasing will not occur. So what corrective measures we can take? The first one, prior to the sampling, we can apply a low pass anti-aliasing filter. What happens? What is the another condition for the occurrence of the aliasing? That if the information carrying signal is not strictly band limited, then also aliasing can occur. The physically realizable signals are not band limited signals, so we can make them band limited first by passing them through a low pass filter. Okay, so that low pass filter is called as anti-aliasing filter. That filter is used before performing the sampling. So first, by passing the information from a low pass anti-aliasing filter, we can make it band limited. So prior to the sampling, what we can do? Prior to the sampling, a low pass anti-aliasing filter can be used to attenuate those high frequency component of the signal that are not essential to the information being conveyed by the signal. Okay, second thing that we can perform to avoid aliasing, that the filtered signal is sampled at a rate slightly higher than the Nyquist rate. That is, we can use this condition to avoid aliasing. By selecting the sampling rate slightly greater than twice of Fm, we can avoid or we can prevent aliasing to occur. It will also allow easier designing of the reconstruction filter used to recover the original signal from its sampled version. Okay. Next we have the types of sampling methods. In how many ways we can perform this sampling, this conversion of continuous analog signal into a discrete time signal. We can convert a continuous analog signal into a discrete time signal with the help of ideal sampling, by performing natural sampling, and by performing flat top sampling. The first one is ideal sampling. Here we can observe that the pulse of train of pulses is in the form of impulse signal, an impulse at each sampling instant, an impulse signal at each sampling instant. But this method is not practically realizable, as it is not possible to generate impulse signal in practicality. What is an impulse signal? According to the definition of impulse signal, it is a signal of having width equals to 0. So in practicality, it is not possible to generate a signal having width equals to 0. So this ideal sampling method is not a practical method. The next method is natural sampling method. It is very much similar to the ideal sampling, but here instead of impulse train, what we use a pulse of short width with varying amplitude. So in this case of natural sampling, we will get a discrete time signal after the sampling. This is a practical method. The next is flat top sampling method. This flat top sampling method can be obtained with the help of sample and hold method, and in this sampling method, what we used to get the flat tops of the sampled signal. Here the top part of the samples will remain flat. This is also a practical method. Now, after understanding the concept of sampling, now we can discuss the types of pulse modulation. The pulse modulation we can categorize as analog pulse modulation and digital pulse modulation. Under analog pulse modulation, we have pulse amplitude modulation, pulse position modulation, pulse width modulation, out of which pulse position and pulse width modulation comes under the category of pulse time modulation. These two categories falls under the category of PTM, that is pulse time modulation. In digital pulse modulation, we have pulse chord modulation, differential pulse chord modulation, delta modulation and adaptive delta modulation. So now we will discuss all of them one by one. Let us start with pulse amplitude modulation. What is pulse amplitude modulation? We know what is pulse modulation. In case of pulse modulation, we use carrier signal in the form of train of pulses. Okay. In pulse amplitude modulation, as the name indicates, what kind of modulation will occur? The amplitude of the carrier pulse signal will vary according to the instantaneous value of the modulating signal. So what is pulse amplitude modulation? First of all, we have to select the carrier in the form of pulses. We will have our modulating signal that we want to modulate, and at the output what we will get, the amplitude of these carrier pulses will vary according to the amplitude of the modulating signal. This is called pulse amplitude modulation. Here we are varying the amplitude of the carrier pulses according to the amplitude of the modulating signal. The width and the position of these pulses will remain constant. What parameter we can vary? In case of pulse modulation, we can vary amplitude, we can vary position, we can vary width of the pulse signal. So in pulse amplitude modulation, we used to vary the amplitude of the carrier pulses according to the modulating signal, and rest parameter, that is the position and the width of the pulse, will remain constant. Okay. Depending upon the type of sampling, the pulse amplitude modulation, this kind of modulation is very much similar to the sampling process. So this pulse amplitude modulation we can categorize depending upon the type of sampling as natural sampling pulse amplitude modulation and flat top pulse amplitude modulation. Here we have the figure for natural pulse amplitude modulation system and the flat top pulse amplitude modulation system. In case of natural PAM, the amplitude of these pulses will exactly take or acquire the shape of modulating signal, while in case of flat top pulse amplitude modulation, the top of the pulses will remain flat and they will vary according to the, and the height will vary according to the amplitude of the modulating signal. Okay. So this is very easiest method of pulse modulation to generate and detect. What are the advantages and disadvantages of this particular method? The generation and the detection of this method is very much easier. The transmitter and receiver circuitry is very simple and easier to construct. The disadvantages are that in case of pulse amplitude modulation, we require a large bandwidth. As the information is contained within the variation of the amplitude of the carrier signal, so the effect of noise is more in case of pulse amplitude modulation. It is less immune to interference. Here, the amplitude of the carrier pulses is varying according to the amplitude of the modulating signal. So, we also require variable power for the transmission of PAM signal. Okay. The next is pulse width modulation. What is pulse width modulation? As the name indicates, in case of pulse width modulation, the width of the carrier pulses should vary according to the instantaneous value of the modulating signal. Here we have the graphical representation. Here we have the carrier pulses of fixed amplitude, position and width. Here we have the modulating signal, that is the information that we want to modulate, and at the output what we have the PWM signals. Here we can observe, as the amplitude of the modulating signal is varying, the width of the carrier pulses is also varying. So, what is pulse width modulation? Pulse width modulation is the type of modulation where we used to vary the width of the carrier pulses according to the modulating signal. Here, the amplitude and the position of the pulse will remain constant. The pulse width modulation is also called as pulse duration modulation. What are the advantages and disadvantages of pulse width modulation? In case of pulse width modulation, as the amplitude of the modulated signal will remain constant, so the effect of noise is less in case of PWM. In case of PWM, it is easier to separate signal and noise at the receiver. In case of PWM, we do not require any synchronization between the transmitter and the receiver. The disadvantages are that because the width of the pulses are varying, so variable power content is required for the transmission of this PWM signal. Also, we require more bandwidth to transmit PWM signal as compared to the PAM signal. Now, let us discuss how we can generate pulse width modulated waveform. To generate a pulse width modulated waveform, we have this circuit arrangement. This is the comparator. At the non-inverting terminal of this comparator, we are applying our modulating signal. At the inverting terminal of this comparator, we are applying a sawtooth generator, that will generate a sawtooth waveform. The output of the comparator will be a PWM signal. What will be the output of this comparator? The output of this comparator will be a plus Vset or minus Vset, depending upon at which terminal the applied signal is having more value. What is the function of the comparator? The function of the comparator is to compare the amplitude or the voltage level of the signals applied at its inverting and non-inverting terminal. If the signal available at the non-inverting terminal is of higher value in comparison of the signal available at the inverting terminal, then the output of the comparator will be equals to plus V saturation, that is the maximum positive output we can have from this comparator. In case the signal available at inverting terminal is greater than the signal available at the non-inverting terminal, then we will get the output of this comparator as minus V saturation. Okay. So, here we will consider the output as plus V saturation. We are considering a single polarity PWM signal at the output. The output of this comparator will be equal to a positive signal, whenever the modulating signal is having more amplitude in comparison of the signal, that is a sawtooth waveform available at the inverting terminal. So, let us understand with the help of waveform. Here we have the waveforms. This is the ramp signal, or we can say in combination, what is this? This is a sawtooth waveform. Here we have our modulating signal, the information. So the comparison will take place wherever our modulating signal will cross the sawtooth waveform. Wherever the amplitude of modulating signal is more than the amplitude of the sawtooth waveform, the output of the comparator will remain high for that much of duration. Okay. So first let us observe the first duration. The modulating signal is crossing the sawtooth waveform at this point. So for this much of duration, the amplitude of modulating signal is higher than the amplitude of this sawtooth waveform. So we will get a pulse for that much of duration. Now moving forward, here again the amplitude of the modulating signal is more than the amplitude of the sawtooth waveform, and again we are getting a pulse, a positive pulse for that much of duration. Moving forward, again in this point the amplitude of the modulating signal is more than the amplitude of the sawtooth waveform. So we are getting a pulse at the output, a positive pulse at the output for that much of duration. So what we can observe finally at the output, what we are getting a pulse of constant amplitude but variable width. So this is how we can generate a PWM signal with the help of this comparator and the sawtooth generator. Okay. With the help of this also we can generate pulse position modulated signal. Let us understand what is pulse position modulation. As the name indicates, in pulse position modulation, what parameter of the carrier pulse will vary? The position of the carrier pulse will vary according to the variation in the modulating signal. Okay. So here we have our modulating signal, here we have carrier pulses. In the modulated waveform, PPM modulated waveform, we can observe the position of the pulse is varying as the amplitude of the modulating signal is varying. So in case of PPM, the amplitude and the width of the pulses will remain constant, but its position will vary according to the instantaneous value of the modulating signal. What are the advantages and disadvantages of PPM? As the amplitude of modulated signal is constant, so again in PPM the effect of noise is very less. In case of PPM, it is easier to separate signal and noise. In case of PPM, we require less power for the transmission of the signal as the width and the amplitude of the pulse is constant. What are the disadvantages? We require a perfect synchronization between the transmitter and receiver for the case of PPM signal. In case of PPM signal, we require large bandwidth in comparison of the pulse amplitude modulated signal. So these are the drawbacks of PPM signals. Now let us understand how we can generate PPM signal with the help of PWM signal. Here we have the block diagram arrangement. At the first we will apply a PWM signal to an inverter, then the output of the inverter will go to a differentiator, then the output of differentiator will go to a pulse generator, that is a positive S triggered pulse generator. What is this pulse generator? The function of this pulse generator is to generate a pulse whenever a positive S signal will be appeared at its input. So this pulse generator will be triggered corresponding to the positive signal at its input, and it will produce a pulse of constant width and constant amplitude. So here we have the pulse width modulated signal. In the second, this PWM signal will be inverted and differentiated. This waveform is representing the inverted and the differentiated PWM signal. So we know what is the differentiation of a square waveform. We used to get spikes wherever the amplitude of the square waveform used to vary. When the amplitude is constant, wherever we are having a constant part in the square waveform, the differentiation of the constant is 0, so we get nothing. for the constant part of the signal. So wherever we are having a falling edge or rising edge, we used to get the spikes, but these spikes are inverted, as first the signal will be inverted and then passed from a differentiator. So the second waveform is representing inverted and differentiated version of the PWM signal. Then these spikes will be applied to a pulse generator, when this pulse generator will be triggered whenever a positive S signal will be appeared at its input. So wherever we are having positive spikes in this waveform, what we will get, what this pulse generator will produce, this pulse generator will produce a pulse of constant amplitude width, of a constant amplitude and a constant width. So wherever we are having positive spikes in this waveform, we will get a pulse generated at the output. So finally, what we can observe that the position of the pulses are shifting with respect to the PWM signal, and this PWM signal we have obtained with respect to the modulating signal. So finally, what we are getting variation in the position or shift in the position of the carrier pulses with respect to the modulating signal. So in this way, we can generate a PPM signal with the help of PWM signal. Let us compare all these three techniques, PM, PPM and PWM. In case of PAM, the amplitude of the carrier pulses will vary. In PWM, the width of the carrier pulses will vary. In case of PPM, the position of the carrier pulses will vary. In case of PAM, the bandwidth depends on the width of the pulses. In case of PWM, the bandwidth depends on the rise time of the pulses, while in case of PPM, the bandwidth depends on the rise time of the pulses, as in the case of PWM. In case of pulse amplitude modulation, the transmitted power varies according to the variation in the amplitude of the modulated signal, while in case of PWM, we require variable transmitted power as the width of the pulse used to vary. In case of PPM, the instantaneous transmitted power remains constant with the width of the pulses. In case of PPM, the amplitude as well as width of the pulse will remain constant. So we require a constant transmission power. In case of PPM, the generation and the detection is very easier, but the system complexity is high. In case of PWM, the system complexity is low. In case of PPM and PWM, both the system complexity is low. In case of PAM, the effect of noise is more, as the information lying within the variation of the amplitude of the carrier pulses, and the effect of noise is also more on the amplitude of the transmitted signal. So in case of amplitude modulation, whatever kind of amplitude modulation it will be, the effect of noise will be more, while in case of PWM and PPM, the effect of noise is less. In the PM is very much similar to the amplitude modulation. The PWM is very much similar to the frequency modulation, while PPM is very much similar to the phase modulation. So this is the basic comparison between PAM, PWM and PPM technique. So in this video lecture, we have discussed pulse modulation system, what is pulse modulation system, how it is different from the continuous analog system, and then we have discussed about the sampling process, sampling theorem, Nyquist criteria, sampling rate, sampling interval. What if Nyquist criteria will not be if the Nyquist criteria will not fulfilled, the aliasing effect, and how we can deal with the aliasing, how we can prevent aliasing to occur. Then we have discussed the different types of pulse modulation techniques, and then we have discussed PAM, PWM and PPM technique. In our next video lecture, we will discuss digital pulse modulation technique, that is pulse code modulation and delta modulation. This is all about this video lecture. Thank you everyone.